Jared Rosenholtz here with Car Buzz, bringing you a review of the 2018 Mazda Miata MX-5. This is the club trim, the most aggressive of all of the Miatas on sale. You have the sport trim, which kind of acts as the base model, and then you have the Grand Touring trim on top of this one. But this is the club package. This is the one that enthusiasts are going to want. This is the most aggressive way that you can order Miata, and this is definitely the way that I would do it. We have the optional BBS Recaro package, which is going to give us these awesome BBS wheels that I think just look absolutely fantastic on this car. We also have Recaro brakes in the front. We also have, new for 2018, is this cherry red top, which some people don't like, some people really do like it. I'm on the side of really enjoying the way that the red top looks, especially with this gray paint on the outside. I think the overall package looks really great. I've loved the ND Miata since it was revealed, and I think that the little improvements that Mazda made to the club package for 2018 have all culminated in a really nice package. You can see these little black extensions on the fenders on both the front and on the sides, and they continue on the back, and with that little spoiler back there just really add to the aggressive nature of this car, which continues on the inside, as we will see. Now, keyless entry is standard on the club, so just keep the key in your pocket and you can unlock the vehicle. I mentioned that we have the optional Recaro package, which is only available on the normal convertible Miata. You can't get them on the RF retractable fastback, so that's a decision you're going to have to make. As with other Miata models, our Bose speakers here are wired into the headrest, which is kind of cool. You can hear the person who you're talking to on Bluetooth on these speakers here, and we have this nice red piping, which kind of matches the brake calipers and some of the other stitching along the doors here, although it doesn't quite match with the red top, as you can see. So a lot of people have complained that the reds don't really match. You can always go with the black roof. This red top is a no-cost option, and these Recaros are very nicely bolstered on both the sides and on the base here. We have this nice Alcantara finish in the middle, and these seats actually are heated as well, and they really hug you in tight. We actually did some autocrossing with this car, and these seats were generally excellent during that. The passenger seat, if you can tell, is a little bit less bolstered, so passengers will be a little bit more comfortable. These can get a little bit firm if you're taking it on long distances. My general rule for these seats is going to be, if this is your weekend car or if you have any desire to autocross or track it, you should probably opt for these Recaros. You can get the BBS wheels and the Brembo brake package without them, but I think these seats really dress up the interior, and I would probably go ahead and order them. So now let's step on the inside and talk a little bit more about the inside of the ND Miata. Now, this is definitely one of the nicer interiors that I've seen on a Miata. It's not the Grand Touring, but it does everything in this nice black with red scheme. Even on the steering wheel, you can see the nice red stitching, the red stitching on the gear knob here. Normal push button start, put your foot on the brake and the clutch, and the car starts. It sounds really good for a 4-cylinder. I love this 2-liter Skyactiv engine. Mazda has tuned it to sound really good, unlike what it does in, say, the Mazda 3, although it's technically shared with the Mazda 3. Mazda 3 really doesn't sound that good, and these gauges are organized differently in the Miata. We have our tachometer right in the middle, so you can always see it and you can always know where your RPMs are at. You have your speedometer on the right, and then you have your little helper screen to the left that displays your normal engine temperature, exterior temperature. You can change using this button here. You can have it display your current fuel economy, average fuel economy, range, and then at the bottom we have our fuel consumption, our fuel level. Now up here, all of the Miata clubs are actually going to come standard with this head unit. The base head unit, which was sort of like a base radio, doesn't really exist anymore on the club package, which is fine. I have my issues with Mazda's infotainment. It's controlled down here with this, I call it iDrive Lite. It's sort of like BMW's controller. You can spin this knob around. It also kicks up, down, left, and right, so you can control the screen with that. Or it is also a touch screen. If you are stationary, you can just select different options on the menu using your finger, although that does lock out when you start moving. It does certain things really well. The navigation is really well. The voice command works decently well, although it has some trouble understanding exactly what you mean. It kind of gives you multiple options and then you have to select the correct one. And you know, it's just okay. I wish that Mazda would just include Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, which would give us more intelligent search, so I could say navigate to Starbucks instead of looking up the address for a Starbucks and then inputting it that way. So Mazda is a little bit behind on that. As of this recording, Mazda has announced a partnership with both Apple CarPlay and Android Auto to retrofit it on 2018 models, although they haven't made any announcements on how that will be done or when. So as of this testing, no Android Auto, no Apple CarPlay on this system. No backup camera, interestingly enough. That is something that I was very surprised by. I'm going to invoke reverse here, and nothing. No reversing camera. I thought that all 2018 models were supposed to have that as standard, so I don't know how Mazda got away with that with the Miata. We do have some safety features on this club package, which is a bit of a surprise considering that this is supposed to be sort of the purest Miata. We do have rear cross traffic alert, so even though there's no camera, when I do put it in reverse using the 6-speed manual shifter here, we are going to get some beeps if we are about to collide with somebody who we're about to reverse into. We also have blind spot monitoring, which can be turned off here, and cruise control, although it is not adaptive on the Miata. Also, we miss out on a few things that we can get on the Grand Touring model. So we don't have an automatic setting on our climate control, and these vent selectors here are actually metal on the Grand Touring. It's kind of a minor dressing up of the interior, so I really don't mind that. And also the controls are super simple. You have cold to hot, so I really don't mind not having an automatic mode. Same too with the automatic headlights, or lack thereof in this case. These are manual headlights. When it gets dark, you got to flip it up to turn the headlights on, and then you kind of have to turn them off. Although, unlike in an old-fashioned car where if you leave the headlights on when you shut the ignition off, these will actually shut the headlights off automatically when you shut the car off, so you don't have to worry about draining your battery overnight, which is kind of nice. And we do have heated seats on these Recaros, which is kind of nice, and there's a nice amount of storage space for such a tiny car. You can stick your phone here and some other items. This goes in pretty deep. And we also have a nice cubby hole right over here where I have my garage door opener. It's kind of shallow, but you can keep something in there. The cup holders are also much better placed than they used to be on the NC Miata, where they were directly here, right behind the path of your shifter. Now one of them is here, although this can also be taken out and removed, and it can be moved to the back where it can really be out of your way. And we also have some storage back there. There is no glove box on this Miata, which is kind of interesting. There's just kind of an empty space here. I'm sure that's due to packaging. It's completely fine. There's enough storage in here. Mostly the fit issues are going to be with your size. You can see as I start to get to the bottom of the wheel here, I'm getting very close to hitting the bottom of my legs, and I really can't lower the seat anymore. The seat doesn't have much adjustment in terms of height, but it can be slid back and reclined, so you kind of have like a race car position in this car, which is kind of nice. Although, you know, people who are over 6 feet tall are going to have a little bit of trouble fitting in here, so definitely try before you buy in terms of fitting in the Miata. And we have the regular convertible, which means we just have this single latch here. Simply do it up. The windows are automatically going to slide down a little bit to make it easier. Push that back, and the roof is kind of going to go to this halfway back position, and then you just kind of have to click it in there. And it is spring loaded, so that when I pull this little lever to unlatch it, it's going to pop up halfway to make it very, very easy to just relatch it right in the center. And although I loved the way the RF looked on the outside, I actually prefer the soft top in terms of how easy it is to put the top up and down, and also how quiet it is. The RF surprisingly wasn't all that much more comfortable. It wasn't all that much more quiet on the highway, because this new roof is actually very, very well insulated. Now I'm going to take you back in the trunk. You might have seen that I actually had to push a button. There is no exterior trunk release, which is one of the few practicality errors that I think Mazda made with this. I would really like to have a button that I could push to open up the trunk, although it's such a minor issue. The trunk is not very big. It has a very, very limited opening, so it's not that easy to get things into the back of it, although it will fit some larger items if you can sort of finagle them in there. And now we're going to go for a spin in the Miata, because that's obviously the most important reason why you buy one of these. Behind the wheel of the Miata, we're going to get into the crux of the reasoning why you would buy this car, and that's the way it drives. It is just so much fun. It's almost hard to believe if you've never driven one of these things. Everybody will tell you how good of a driver it is, but it's really hard to explain until you've actually sat in the driver's seat and just gotten on that little engine, gone through these gears, this tight 6-speed manual transmission. It instantly becomes apparent why people love this car so much. We've got a 2-liter Skyactiv 4-cylinder engine making 155 horsepower and 148 foot-pounds of torque. Now, Toyota Camrys have way more than that. The Camry that I reviewed last week had 301 horsepower. So you're not going to win too many drag races in this car, although you can get from 0 to 60 in under 6 seconds if you're a really, really good driver. I'm going to try that now. It doesn't feel slow, and that's because this car only weighs 2,300 pounds. Now, I'll give you a moment to try and come up with some other brand new cars on sale today that only weigh 2,300 pounds. You had a moment? Yeah, there aren't too many. Most cars are very, very heavy nowadays, so it's refreshing to see that Mazda actually made this car lighter than the car it replaced. I owned the previous generation Miata, the NC, and that weighed in at about 2,500 pounds. So although this is actually a little bit down on power compared to the outgoing model, it's actually lighter as well and faster. And thanks to all that lightness, the car really doesn't have a lot to move around, so that little engine is able to get some pretty stellar MPG numbers. The EPA rates this car at 26 MPG in the city and 33 on the highway, with 23 combined. And I actually took this car autocrossing the other day, so I was very, very high in the rev range, and you know, I've just been flooring this car all over the place, because you really can get away with going pretty heavy on the throttle without reaching excessive speeds, thanks to that pretty manageable power output. And I've been averaging about 28 mpg, so that's pretty darn close to what the EPA said that I would manage combined on the cycle. And I have not been driving this car like a typical driver would. Now, one of my favorite features is this little display screen in the tachometer that actually tells you what gear you're in. It's kind of cool. A lot of automatic cars will tell you what gear they're in, but a lot of manual cars really don't have that ability. So as soon as you release the clutch, it'll tell you I'm in third, and then when I start to pick up speed, it'll tell me that I should shift from third to fourth to try and get the best fuel economy. Now, I don't really love driving the way it tells me to shift, because you kind of end up lugging the engine, although you will get the best fuel economy that way. And interestingly, it'll also tell you if you're going fast enough, it won't just tell you to shift from maybe fourth to fifth, it'll tell you it's safe to shift from fourth to sixth, which is kind of interesting. I've done it a couple times. If you're driving this car the way that it was meant to be driven, which we were about to do, you're really not going to obey what the car is telling you to. Now, what kind of review of a Miata would this be if I didn't take the windows down, undo the latch, and drop the top? See how easy that was? That's one of the reasons why I prefer the soft top to the retractable fastback. You just can't lower the roof that fast in the retractable fastback model. And now, I know it gets good miles per gallon, but they really need to create a new measurement for this car, smiles per gallon, because this is still just one of the most fun cars that you can buy at any price, on any budget. This is the Club Trim, which is the most aggressive Miata you can buy. That's going to get you ventilated front disc brakes, a sport-tuned suspension with Bilstein shocks, front and rear stabilizer bars, a front tower brace, and the all-important limited slip differential. That's going to help you a lot on those track days. All this is about $29,155 base for the club package, although ours does have a couple of options which brings the base price up to a less manageable $35,240. Yes, I know $35,000 does sound like a lot to spend on a Miata, but car prices in general have just been getting really, really expensive, so it really isn't too much of a stretch to imagine spending that much on this car. Now, the biggest package that we have on this car is the $4,400 Brembo BBS Recaro package. That's going to roll in those BBS wheels that we saw on the outside of the car, the Brembo front brakes, the rears are just normal two-pots, so I really don't love the Brembo brakes. They're not my favorite. They definitely stop the car very well, but I feel like any brakes would do that. This car is so light that it really doesn't take all that much stopping power, so that's definitely not my favorite feature. But these Recaros on this package are very, very nice. If you're going to do any sort of track days or autocross with this car, these things really, really hug you. They keep you in your seat. They look fantastic, so I think a lot of people, out of everything in the package for $4,400, I think the seats and the wheels definitely add to the aesthetic the most. You can opt out of those Recaros if you want the more comfortable seats that come in this car, and that's going to be about $3,700 without the Recaros. So you can cut almost $500 or $600 off the price if you're willing to forego these Recaro seats. I'd probably do them if I was spending my money on it. And no matter what wheels you get, you are getting 205 section tires, Bridgestone Potenzas on all four corners. So a lot of people are going to want to upgrade. The Bilstein shocks definitely make this car stiffer, although not intolerable completely. There's still a decent amount of body roll when you try and chuck this thing through the corners, so some people are going to want to turn to the aftermarket to try and make it a little bit stiffer. And now it's starting to rain a little bit, and I'm going to demonstrate one of the reasons why I absolutely love the soft top. It's up super quick, didn't have to wait for any electric motors to move it around. See, there you go. That's one of the reasons why I prefer the soft top. The soft top Miata is also a cheaper model too, so you're going to save a little bit over the RF. I think the main reason why you're going to want to buy the RF is because you simply like the look of it, and it definitely looks like a more expensive car than the regular soft top. So in my opinion, I would keep the Miata as it was meant to be, a regular convertible, although the RF is still a very, very cool car. And if you want these Recaros, remember, you have to get the soft top. They are not available on the RF. And just driving this car, it's a little different than the NC that it replaces. We forgo the hydraulic steering. We now have electric power steering, but this is one of the best electric power steering units on the market. On center, it's a little bit light for my feel, although the steering really weights up when you get into a corner there. So I'm about to take a nice tight turn here. Steering weights up, and you just have so much feel off center. It really does dance in your hands. And this transmission, I don't know why all manual transmissions don't feel like this. The throws are nice and short and crisp and notchy. I love this little sort of golf ball shifter that it has on here, wrapped in leather. It's just so nice feeling in your hand, and you can just execute your shift quickly and get it right back on the wheel, which is where it needs to be when you're doing some hardcore performance driving. And I mentioned the RF is a little bit quieter, but not that much. This new soft top roof is so much better than the one it replaces. I used to say about my old Miata that it's a car that essentially doesn't have a roof, although there's this rag that you can use to cover up if it's gonna rain and you don't want to get wet. It was so loud in that car that I never really wanted to go anywhere on the highway. This is a lot better if you're going to take your Miata someplace far. You can hear the person on the other end if you're talking on Bluetooth without having to shout. You can have a conversation with your passenger without raising your voice too much, although this is definitely not a luxury car. It's still never going to be that. So, and you're going to want to hear that engine all the time. Mazda didn't include a whole lot of sound deadening in this car because they know their audience. They know people are going to want to rev that naturally aspirated engine out all the way, which creates a bit of a ruckus, but oh my goodness, you and your passengers are going to have the biggest grins when you do. The Miata is still a great entry-level sports car. I know it's approaching a pretty high price when you factor in all of the options. $35,000, that would get you, without dealer markups, into a Civic Type R, which is a much more powerful, much more usable car. But even the best hot hatchbacks that I've driven just don't excite me the way that this car does. It's raw. You feel all of the bumps. You feel everything through the wheel. And that's something that no hot hatchback is going to be able to capture. If you want the best sporty experience, it is still the Miata. The 86 Twins are a lot of fun, but I think this club package Miata is the entry-level sports car to get. It's the one I'd buy. It's the one I would still recommend. And if you loved this review of the 2018 Miata Club, be sure to subscribe to the CarBuzz YouTube channel and download our app on iOS and Android. I hope you enjoyed this video. I'll see you next time. Oh, yes. Love this car.